Guys, it's Jolene from Smith's Nature Friendly Farms. A lot of you have been asking me for an update on the dwarf moringa trees that we started. So I'm going to give you an update. I'm going to tell you about 3 things that have been really important that I've learned about the dwarf moringas, and we'll share those with you today. All right, guys, we have grown dwarf moringa trees. If you didn't already see it, there's a video on the best method for germinating dwarf moringa trees. We'll put that in the description down below. But if you've already germinated them and you're wondering how to care for them, I've got some learnings I'm going to share for you along the way. Okay, so one of the first things I need to do is admit that I have committed plant murder once again. This is very common in my garden. It happens all the time, and it's all part of the learning process. I do not believe there is such a thing as a green thumb. I think a green thumb is merely developed through a heck of a lot of plant murder. So we have done this again with the plant, the dwarf moringa plant, and I have some great learnings from that process. It's unfortunate, but it is how it goes. But let's start with taking a look at the dwarf moringa that we started from seed from our original video. All right, so this is the dwarf moringa from our batch of seeds we planted. So we planted 12 seeds, 3 of which did not come to fruition based on the method, and that's in the video that outlines which method didn't work. We had 4 that we killed, and we had 3 that we gave away and 2 that are currently surviving. Now, one of the 2 that I have, we had workers at our house and they knocked over the plant and stepped all over it. It looks really rough. So we're not looking at that one. This is my main surviving and healthy looking dwarf moringa. So with the 4 that we killed, we learned that there are really 3 major things to growing a dwarf moringa. One of our first major learnings was about the soil, and this is probably the single most important learning we had with the seedlings. As they get older, it probably matters a lot less, but in the seedling stage, it really mattered greatly of what type of soil we had. So initially, we were using a Miracle Grow potting soil that has a heavy peat moss mixture to it. Peat moss is mainly to keep the moisture in, which usually typically in the south we need because it's so hot. But the dwarf moringa is so susceptible to root rot that it does not like a peat moss soil at all. So we put it in this soil here, which its ingredients are composted forest material, sand, and composted barnyard waste. And man, it just took off after we put it into this soil. No more plant issues. We had tiny bits of leaf yellowing, which can be a lot of different things. But overall, the plants, the seedlings we had started to really thrive. So the type of soil was the #1 most important factor when dealing with dwarf moringa seedlings. The second factor has been moisture. Dwarf moringas, like I said, and with the soil, is really susceptible to root rot. It matters how much you're watering it. I noticed right off the bat that the dwarf moringa tends to yellow a fair bit. It has a lot of sensitivity. Yellowing is a bit tough because yellowing, it's hard to know what exactly it is. Is it too much moisture, not enough moisture, or not enough nutrients? Because yellowing equates to all 3 of those things. In the case of my plant, I have found that too much moisture tends to lead to yellowing. Yes, if it's not enough, it could be yellowing as well. So keeping the moisture right on a dwarf moringa is a bit of an art form, and I'm still trying to 100% figure it out. But my understanding is that it needs to be moist, but not soggy, and it needs to dry out. So I have been learning that I let it get to the point where it's completely and utterly dry, and then water thoroughly and let it dry out again, and not do it again until it's actually dried out again. And overall, that seems to be managing its moisture level quite well. The last thing that we want to look at that is helping the plant's success rate is it in the sun? It really does need a lot more sun than other plants because it's a plant that uses photosynthesis in order to get its nutrients from the soil. So you need to make sure that this plant is actually out in the sun. If you start to see yellowing of the leaves, it may not actually be getting enough sun. If you have it out planted somewhere where it's getting shade from a tree that's growing up near it, you'll want to make sure that you try and get it some more sun. So that's it, guys. That's been my experience with the dwarf moringa. things to pay attention to are its soil quality, lower in the peat moss, your moisture level, not too much, not too little. I know that's a little hard to manage. And then absolutely, does it have enough sun? So make sure you've got your dwarf moringa out where it can get all the sun rays that it can. Awesome, you guys. As usual, be friendly, be kind.